North Korea. It's the center of a lot of news stories and causing more than a little concern for our world leaders. Over the past several years, we've watched the missile tests, military parades, and listened to all the classic rhetoric coming from the Hermit Kingdom. Many people laugh it off because we all know that in any conflict, Kim Jong-un and his army would be squashed like a bug. But don't relax too much. It turns out the North is actually a lot more dangerous than many of us realize. Take a look at this following intelligence video we've put together and see if you agree. Before we give you your level 1 security clearance, be sure to subscribe. Leave a like and a comment too. With that, let's begin our intelligence briefing. The government. One of the important things your country needs to have to function smoothly and work with other countries is a solid and stable government. North Korea both passes and fails in this respect. The government in Pyongyang rules with complete authority. It is made up of the most loyal and dedicated politicians and generals who oversee everything to do with their country. At the same time, this government is incredibly weak and paranoid because at a moment's notice, any one of those officials could be imprisoned or worse for any perceived insult against Kim Jong-un. This actually happens on a regular basis, with Kim even punishing his own uncle. What this all boils down to is the fact that the North Korean government is like a cornered animal, penned in by not only the outside world, but by its own rules and fear-mongering. As a result, while it's maintained itself through 3 generations of dictators, it still has an air of unpredictability, which is a big deal when you're talking about a country with a large army and nuclear weapons. The Army. In the current climate, it's easy to overlook the simple fact that North Korea has one of the largest armies in the world. Sure, in terms of technology and modernity, it's stone-aged compared to the American and South Korean forces. But that may not matter. In any conflict, the North would call upon 1 million active military personnel with another 5 or 6 million in reserve. That's quite a lot of manpower when you consider it's more than the Russian or American military. Add into this a fleet of thousands of tanks, and you have a force that can sustain a lot of casualties. Again, the tanks are almost all older types from the 1960s and 70s, but they have a lot of them. This sheer mass of low-tech military might likely keep US planners up at night because it would be difficult to stop it all, even using the high-tech systems in the American arsenal. The other weapons. While we're all caught up in the headlines about ICBMs and nukes, many of us forget the fact that North Korea also possesses a lot of other dangerous weapons. For years now, the international community has been suspicious that the Hermit Kingdom possessed a large amount of chemical and biological weaponry. Recently, various intelligence agencies have assessed that North Korea possesses several thousand tons of chemical agents, including mustard and sarin gas. In terms of biological weapons, it is believed they possess various amounts of anthrax, smallpox, and cholera. While military forces are generally trained to deal with such threats, the real danger is in how exposed and vulnerable the civilian populations are. For instance, South Korea's capital, Seoul, is within range of the numerous long-range North Korean artillery and missile systems. In addition to regular rockets and shells, many politicians and generals are concerned that even a few armed with chemical or biological weaponry would increase the number of casualties greatly. Kim Jong-un. The Western media loves to portray Kim Jong-un as a madman who is totally unpredictable and bent on bringing the world to its end. Surprisingly, this isn't the case. Analysts and experts are fairly certain that there's a method to this dictator's madness. Kim is definitely aggressive and a risk taker, but he's also all about survival. He knows exactly how to push the buttons of his adversaries, just as well as he knows how to push the launch button on those missiles. Having watched his family rule the country as a kid, Kim has been educated and advised by his father and advisors over the years. He knows just how far he can go without starting a conflict. Where Little Man is incredibly dangerous is in the fact that he is far more ruthless than his father and grandfather ever were. In fact, an ex-bodyguard for Kim even reported that he ensures loyalty from his people by ruling through fear. Perceived insults or slights result in the firing squad. So we can only imagine how insults from world leaders enrage the North Korean dictator. The agents. North Korea may be the most isolated nation on Earth, but it still has some reach and influence beyond its borders. In this instance, we're specifically thinking about the Hermit Kingdom's use of special agents and commandos. The fanatical loyalty of the regime's people means there is no shortage of volunteers willing to take on one-way missions, if you know what we mean. Whether targeting diplomatic envoys like in Rangoon in 1983 or bringing down airliners like in 1987, North Korean agents have the ability to cause much damage. In 1968, North Korean commandos even attempted to neutralize the South Korean leader while he was in the Blue House, South Korea's version of the White House. More recently, the ability of these agents has been shown when they successfully got to Kim Jong-nam, the brother of Kim Jong-un, while he waited in a Malaysian airport. The list goes on, with agents even reportedly captured in China in October 2017, while they sought to take out another of Kim's opponents. The propaganda. We don't need to tell you that propaganda plays a huge role in North Korean society. Walking around and taking in all the banners, posters, and billboards, you could be forgiven if you thought you were back in a 1930s authoritarian state. Everything is portrayed as a battle or for the good of the nation, and especially its leader. Whether it's a billboard depicting Kim as a god or an appearance by infamous broadcaster Ri Chun-hee, who is famous for her boisterous and dramatic delivery, the people are bombarded nonstop by messages created by the government. As a result, while North Korea can call upon several million people to fill the ranks of the military, experts think millions more would gladly give their lives to undertake any orders Pyongyang gave them. Many people outside of North Korea can't understand how the people fall for such cheesy propaganda. But hey, when you were raised knowing nothing else, then you have no reason to question it. Organized crime. The dangers of North Korea go far beyond the battlefield or shadowy secret agents. With all the discussion of sanctions, it raises a serious question. How can North Korea keep going when so much of their market is blocked? The answer? Crime. From hackers and thieves to counterfeiting and smuggling, the North has quite the state-sponsored crime syndicate in place. First, it's known that North Korea produces and smuggles hundreds of millions of dollars in illicit substances around the world. Second, the country is a known counterfeiter of both cigarettes and money. In fact, fake North Korean $100 bills were partly responsible for the US developing a new $100 bill in 2013. Then there's the illegal arms sales, which can be really dangerous if certain weapons end up in the wrong hands. Finally, we can't forget the hackers. They've done everything from break in and steal millions of dollars from a Bangladesh bank to hack Sony studios in response to a film they viewed as insulting. Not bad for an isolated country. The nukes. When you turn on the news, all we generally hear about is that North Korea doesn't have a small nuke or one that can easily be launched by a missile. This overlooks the fact that the country does in fact possess a number of weapons, likely in a variety of sizes. Various tests undertaken over the previous years have revealed everything from Hiroshima-sized capability in the 20 kiloton range to the latest test, which was likely over 100 kilotons. While the focus of all the talk has been on whether North Korea can miniaturize these weapons, the fact remains, when push comes to shove, they wouldn't have to. While the missile is the fastest way to get a warhead to its target, unfortunately there are other proven methods to deliver massive destruction to a region. After all you need to do is put one on a plane and send it on a one-way mission to Seoul or Japan, and the destruction would be horrible. The missiles. Well, since we've already mentioned North Korea's missiles, we might as well stay here for a minute. The DPRK's missile program goes all the way back to the 1960s, when it received its first batch of missiles from the then Soviet Union. In the coming decades, they managed to import other missiles, like the infamous Scud. Reverse engineering and domestic development led them to where they are today. That is, North Korea now possesses a range of ballistic missiles which can strike everywhere from Seoul to Tokyo to, reportedly, Washington, D.C. What's been most worrying to American leadership in the past year is just how quickly Kim Jong-un's program has advanced. With only sanctions and fiery rhetoric, the U.S. is totally powerless as Kim has developed long-range threats like the Hwasong 14 and 15 ICBMs. While these can theoretically reach the U.S. mainland, what's more worrying is that the pace of the DPRK's development means they will definitely have a reliable long-range ICBM in a very short period of time. China. At the end of the day, North Korea is sort of like that trash-talking bully in the schoolyard. You want to see him get put in his place, but no one will because he has a much larger friend watching his back. In this case, that friend is China. Over the last year, you've probably seen Donald Trump desperately trying to get China to increase the pressure on the DPRK. The thing is, China will only pressure its neighbor to a point because it doesn't want to weaken Kim's regime too much. From China's point of view, having a boisterous and ranting Kim Jong-un on your border is a better alternative to a united Korea under US influence. Furthermore, if the North was thrown into total collapse, China would face a massive tidal wave of refugees seeking food and shelter. All of this makes North Korea especially dangerous because North Korea knows China will never throw it to the wolves, so to speak. In fact, North Korea knows the US would never initiate an attack for fear of drawing China into the conflict. Having that reassurance means Kim can get away with a lot more than most world leaders. So, what do you make of how dangerous North Korea actually is? Is it a credible threat, or simply a bunch of bluff and bluster? In any event, our meeting is at an end, and we have another video all ready for you to watch. Please turn in your security pass and be sure to subscribe before you leave the facility. Like us and leave a comment. You never know, we may just feature you in a future video. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye for now.